I got a good one. Why raids can't return? So, this is something I see from a lot of, you know, obviously the old veteran players. A lot of them have always wanted raids to come back in some way, shape, or form. I came into the game right at the tail end on the deathbed of raids. And I did get to try it exactly once. I think on the last day they were ever available, I did get to try, I think, Law of Retribution. And granted, it was very interesting. It was horribly confusing because I was still very new at the time, so I had no idea what was happening. But, for those of you who don't know, who are newer players, what raids were is they are an 8-player mission where you have 8 10 in a single squad, and you go through a series of, you know, single missions, almost like, what do you call it? Like EDA, ETA, kind of. The flow of it was, and they're always very particular, you know, lots of meticulous detail to take care of. Everyone had a role, everyone had a job, for those who played in, you know, large organized groups. And they were the original source of arcanes before Eidolons came around. Once raids were retired, they were entirely moved to Eidolons, and subsequently events as well. But raids were eventually removed for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons is the bugginess of raids. I'm sure the people who actually have played raids do know that raids were incredibly buggy and had a lot of issues tied to them that could just either soft lock you or ruin the run entirely. And they were not free. You couldn't just do these. You had to craft items for them, as I recall. You needed keys. So if, you know, you spent a key and you did a raid and it bugged out, well, there you go. You kind of lose your key. Or at least you lose your run or your progress. You have to do it all over again. Because these things weren't necessarily the easiest. Especially back in the day, since we didn't have the tools that we have at our disposal now. But again, I think, beyond bugginess, I think one of the reasons that raids were discontinued, and the main reason why they won't come back, is because of how they were structured in terms of matchmaking. So, I mean, we already have issues, you know, with host migrations and peer-to-peer currently as it is. Now, imagine that twofold. Having to deal with it where the host leaves and then you get like a 7-player host migration, and that kills your run and you fail the mission. Because that is a very real possibility that could happen. So, like, obviously the stress on, you know, network play, especially now that we have crossplay enabled. Imagine having to corral, like, 8 people on, you know, like, 20 different machines, all trying to connect to one game, and, you know, not get host migrated or have connection issues or lag, and then trying to matchmake that as well. I think that the pure logistics of raids makes them really, really difficult to bring back, at least in the same way that they were. Like, I don't think that we'll ever get 8-player content again, at least not in the same way. I just don't see that as feasible. But I do see similar challenges coming back in some way, shape, or form. Like, they've been experimenting with, like, larger, you know, endgame, you know, kind of prep type things. Like, again, EDA, ETA, I think were kind of a, you know, getting their feet wet into, like, that sort of content again after having it absent from the game for quite a while. So they have, I feel like they have been kind of trying to you know, not get raids back, but invoke the same feeling? Like the same style of content, if you will? Again, I think a lot of the people who were into raids moved on to Prophet Taker and Eidolons. So I think they kind of found a home, but not really. But I think one of the other larger issues as to why I don't think Warframe Ramble will ever get content like that again is because large-scale group... content that requires large-scale group cooperation is kind of not Warframe's MO these days. Especially with the way Warframes are designed, everyone works and moves so independently that you would really be hard-pressed to organize 8 people to get them all to do specific tasks, especially if you're doing it at a pub. God forbid you're doing it at a pub. I don't think we would get that level of complexity in a mission ever again. Just because of how Warframe is structured now and how it is expected to be played now. Like, the way objectives are, it's not really assigned for each person to do some specific role. Everyone can work towards the same thing at the same time. Like, we can all kill, get amphers, and throw them into the alchemy pot, I guess we'll call it. Whatever it is. Crucible. And, you know, we can all do that simultaneously, and we're not really interfering with each other while doing that. Or, for example, you know, just take excavation, for instance. Again, we're all killing enemies, we're all trying to get power, and we're all trying to protect the excavator, and we can't step on each other's toes. There's no way that one person can take up an entire task in a single mission, really. I think the only place where that is correct is spy vaults. And even then, technically all 4 of you can go into a spy vault. Not that it's going to help you, but you can all do that. Warframe is designed in such a way where communication is not necessary for objectives. The only thing I guess that needs to be really communicated to the player is, you know, I guess the game mode's rules, so to speak. Like, oh, well, you need to kill stuff within the circle, I guess. But again, everyone does that. That's not player-to-player communication. That is game-to-player communication. I think that, for a broader sense, raids just can't come back anymore. And again, not in the way that they were. Just because of the way the game is, the way it's expected to be played. I could, at some point, see them experimenting with an 8-player event. Purely as an event. But I don't know if they would want to maintain an 8-player game mode active at any given time. Because not only is 8 players a lot of stress on servers, it's also a matter of, now that we're so powerful, we're like all walking nuclear bombs, how do you feed all 8 players a substantial amount of gameplay without stepping on each other's toes? Like, how do you do that? Do you spawn more enemies? I don't think that's feasible, because that creates performance issues, and they've avoided that. They're very particular about, you know, how many enemies can be in a map tile at a time. They're very particular about its optimization. So I find it unlikely that, again, outside of a very specific event where that wouldn't be an issue, I cannot foresee them bringing raids back. Which is a shame, because conceptually they were very cool. Having 8 players in a squad allowed for a lot of unique interactions and things to happen. You could get some crazy numbers. You could fucking create cold fusion if you wanted to, if you were all you know, working together in a Discord call, trying to do whatever it is you need to do. You could patty cake up an Equinox and a Nidus with power strength and create, you know, some infinite loops or something. But the unfortunate reality is that Warframe is just not built for that type of gameplay anymore.